Okay, so today's tomato review is going to be on this tomato right here, and this is called the wild hairy tomato. It's a Solanum glabratum, I believe it's called. Correct spelling will be down in the description. But this is a very rare wild tomato variety. You generally can't buy it anywhere on the internet. So I will make seeds available for this at the end of the year. But this tomato is absolutely amazing as far as the potential of growth on this thing. I've never seen a tomato grow quite the way this thing does. This tomato is so aggressive and grows so large, it dwarfs any of the pimp tomatoes, like the Everglade tomatoes or golden currants. This tomato is absolutely enormous and aggressive compared to those tomatoes. It outperforms those tomatoes by a mile. However, this tomato is a little bit awkward as far as trying to eat the tomato. So I would definitely warn you in advance. We're going to open it up. We're going to show you what it looks like. But I have tried a couple, and I don't know. Some people say they're edible, I've read. And I wouldn't imagine it's going to get you sick. It didn't get me sick. But I don't know. You're going to find out. So anyway, this is this is a wild tomato from Peru. It's very rare. You can't get really seed for it. Now this particular variety of tomato comes in two forms, and one is a hairy form where the whole stem on the plant is hairy along with the tomatoes and everything else, and then there's this form which the stem of the plant is generally not very hairy, but it's very glossy, the leaves. And so this is that form. I don't know what the difference is as far as the botanical names or anything. I don't know what that name is. But it's basically two different types of the same tomato. All right, so there's two forms. This is only one form of it. So anyway, let's give you a look at what it looks like. Okay, you can see what it looks like here. You can see on the bottom of the tomato, if I could get my big dumb finger out of there, you see on the bottom of the tomato there's like a stripe on it. Okay, that's very consistent with this tomato. You'll see a stripe. Sometimes it's an X or a Y that comes off. You'll see two. See if I can find one like that. But they're mostly always a little stripe on the bottom of the tomato. And this tomato has a peach fuzz around it, so it's very furry and soft like a velvet. And this tomato produces these type of tomatoes, which is what you see here is about an average size, a little bit bigger than a currant tomato. So it's not quite a currant tomato. It's a little larger, but not any larger than that. I mean, these are about as large as they get. But a typical size would be something like that, a little bit smaller. Where are you? Right there, a little bit smaller. Or they're usually, you'll find a lot of times they're small like that. They'll fall on the ground like that. So these particular tomatoes did fall on the ground. I do not know when to actually eat these things for ripeness. I mean, these things have been sitting out for weeks now, and they're still green, they're not rotting, and I don't know. I don't know when do they turn color, do they not? I honestly don't know, guys. I mean, some of these tomatoes look like they're starting to dry up green. So, I mean, the little ones probably don't have seeds in them, but so I don't really know at this point. I mean, like I said, they're falling on the ground. They've been sitting there pretty much for at least 6 weeks, and they're just sitting on the ground 6 weeks already, and they're still not changing color, they're not rotting, they're just sitting there just like this. So only thing I can say about that is that I don't think it's going to matter how ripe or not it is, because you're going to find out in a second why I'm saying that. So let's cut this in half. Let me zoom you out a little bit. Let's cut this in half. And show you the inside. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know what you could see or not see here. I'm assuming you can see this. Can you see that? I'll do some close-up snapshots and maybe add that to the end of the video, because unless I'm out in the bright sunlight shooting the video, you're not going to be able to see it very well. And I don't have good lighting. So hopefully you can see that. That's what it looks like in the inside. It looks like a regular pimp tomato. It's got two chambers. And here's the other half. I'll show you that. And I want to show you like some of the seeds on my fingers because they're not regular tomato seeds, guys. I'll put them on my hand here. Do you see how tiny those seeds are? And what they look like? They don't look anything like a tomato seed that you're used to seeing. Alright, so just so you know, these are very, very tiny tomato seeds. And they do take a little care when you first start them. But once this plant gets going, there's no stopping it. There honestly is no stopping this plant. So, let's do a Brix on it. I'm actually curious to see what the Brix says on it. And then we'll taste test it for you reluctantly. And I say that tongue in cheek. Holy smokes. It's almost 8 on the Brix. But I can certainly assure you it's not the sweetness. I don't know what that 8 is, but it's not sweetness. It has a funny smell to it too. A very pungent type of smell. It's almost, I don't know. You get it on your hands, it stinks like. It has a funny stink to it. But anyway, here it is. We'll give that half a go. Alright? We'll give that a go. Let's see what it tastes like. Wish me luck. Okay, so this one's quite different than the last couple that I ate. Okay, so when these first fell on the ground, I tried eating a couple of them. And I spit them right out. It was very unpleasant, should I say. But these have been ripening for quite a while now. They have been sitting around and ripening and ripening and ripening. And they're not rotting. I don't know what's going on with them. But I guess the longer you let them ripen, the better they taste. To be rather honest with you, the flavor of that was actually pretty good, to be honest with you. But in the green form, forget it. Don't even attempt to eat it. Well, they're all green. But when I say green, I meant early. In its early form, before it really ripens, if you eat them, oh, they're absolutely unedible. I'll eat another one for you. That was very good. I want to describe the flavor of this for you because this was actually very, very good. I was actually going to downplay it because I already had one and I didn't care for it. It was not very good, the one that I ate the last time. I guess the taste and the flavors could vary, so let's see what that tastes like. Okay. There is a complex plethora of flavors going on here. Let's talk about the sweetness. First of all, it does have a sweetness, but not like a tomatoey type of sweetness. This thing actually has like a sweetness like a berry of some type. It's sweet like, sugary sweet. So it's very sweet like. It has a very candy-like sweetness to it, but not strong. It's a nice tone, overtone. It's just the type of sweetness it is very different than the sweetness of a cherry tomato or something like that. This is a very interesting and weird kind of a flavor we're talking about here. So that's the first thing I noticed. Let me eat another one and try to get some more of the flavors because there's a few things going on here. There's an undertone of some kind of a like berry to it. Now forget the sweetness part, we know about that, but now there's like an undertone to it. When you first eat it, the first flavor you get from it, not the aftertaste, but the first flavor, it's sort of like some kind of a berry. Very slightly though, you can sense something in there. It's in there and you can feel it. It's definitely not your typical tomato flavor. The aftertaste of it has that tomatoey aftertaste. When you first bite that gel that comes out of it, when you first eat that gel is just like eating a sunberry or some kind of a berry with seeds in it like that. And it's the same thing. It tastes very much like a berry at first. Then you start chewing it up and it quickly switches over to like a tomato flavor. And it gets tangy, but then in that, going from the berry side to the tomato, there's like a transition in flavor. When you get into that transition in flavor, some of the other undertones suddenly arise. And your palate suddenly detects these undertones. And along with that tomato flavor, some of these weird undertones with it. It's not bad or anything, but it is definitely something wild, should I say. It's not your everyday type of typical tomato flavor. When you initially first eat the tomato, yes, it has a very berry-like flavor. I'll do one more for you. I got thousands of these tomatoes, guys. They're all over my garden. They're just falling to the ground. So I will definitely be able to offer seeds to this at the end of the year. But let's give it one more. The only thing I could tell you is that when you first bite it and start eating it, it tastes like a berry of some kind. Not raspberry or anything, but like a wild berry of some sort. And the sweetness it's pretty high, but it's just a very flash of it. You get like that real rich sweet flavor with the berry flavor, and then that completely disappears, and then it suddenly starts to taste like tomato. And then that tomato flavor starts to linger around, and that tomato flavor is very different than like a regular tomato. It's the only way I could describe it. It does have a tanginess to it, and it does have the aftertaste that comes in afterwards, but it's very different is what I should say. I can't, there's no other way I can get that across to you effectively. There's no other way I can really explain that. But that's about the best way I could describe this tomato. It's actually quite a delicious tomato. I'm very interested in exploring this tomato a little bit more, and possibly eventually crossing this over with some other varieties to see what traits will the other varieties pick up from this variety of tomato. So I will be working on that in the future, but for now, this is what it is. And that's about it. That's our tomato review for the wild hairy tomato. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.